p.m. in Moscow, and it's good to have you with us. And we start this hour in Australia. And the operation to free hostages from a central Sydney cafe is now officially over. After a 17-hour siege, heavily armed police entered the building with live rounds and stun grenades. It's been confirmed 3 people were killed in the assault, the attacker among them. Several others were injured. They were seen being carried out of the cafe on stretchers. Right now, we don't know exactly how many hostages were being held. 12 managed to escape before the police assault started. Some eyewitnesses recounted what they saw during the 17-hour-long siege.
They're all up against the wall with their eyes closed and all their hands up against the glass.
The first pictures were the pictures of the windows, with the people, their hands against the windows. Straight away, there were 3 people that I knew.
Well, the attacker has been identified as Man Haron Moniz, a self-styled Muslim cleric who came to Australia from Iran in 1996 and received political asylum. He'd previously taken part in a hate mail campaign over Australia's involvement in the US-led operations in Afghanistan. He was sentenced to 300 hours of community service for sending letters to the families of Australian soldiers killed in Afghanistan. US security expert Ivan Elan told us it's likely the gunman was acting alone.
This is probably what's called a lone wolf attack. Now, this may prove different if we haven't had an investigation of this particular incident, but it seems like it might be a lone wolf, which means he's not operating without a terrorist infrastructure or whatever. But still, the retaliation is in most part protesting non-Muslim forces on Muslim land, and I think that's what's the underlying force driving this. It will be interesting to see if it's a lone wolf attack or if he has some conspirators as well.
While being held, the hostages were seen pressed up against the window holding a black flag. The white letters expressed an Islamic slogan about being one with God, which is often used by radical groups. There are also some low-quality images of the attacker who can be seen wearing a bandana with Arabic lettering on it. Well, some Muslims in Sydney are now terrified about the consequences for them. Fatima Ali is an anti-Islamophobia activist. She's expecting Muslims to be the target of hate following this siege.
I genuinely do believe that hate crimes are very possible, especially, within experience within the Sydney community. In previous years, we found that after things like this, hate crimes do increase and attacks on Muslim women especially do increase. At the moment, I feel very, just personally, I feel terrified for my safety and for the safety of Australians. We as the Muslim community, and I believe as the wider, Australian community, absolutely condemn these kind of attacks.
Well, contrary to the concerns just voiced, social media has actually been abuzz with support for Australian Muslims. The head of RT's social media department, Ivor Crotty, earlier told my colleague Katie Pilbeam about the latest hashtag which is trending.
I'll ride with you is the big hashtag of the day.
I'll ride with you?
Yeah, I'll ride with you. Now, that's been a reaction that emerged from the Australian public in Sydney this morning, which tried to basically preempt anybody pointing out or identifying members of the Muslim community in Sydney or in Australia, in fact, and preventing any kind of prejudicial behaviour towards them following the events in the Central Business District. This is a little heat map of what happened or how it started. Australians are basically offering to go home on the metro or on the suburban train with members of the Muslim community to make sure that people aren't targeted and pointed out. It's trending about as strongly as Sydney siege is across Australia and indeed globally.
And there's been some quite controversial postings, as I understand it as well, Ivor.
I think the controversy was more around the selfies that were taken in the Central Business District this morning at Sydney. It's a selfie society, and there's, you can link it to narcissism or not, but either way, people are going to take photographs of themselves in events where something extraordinary is taking place. People started having a go at each other about, you know, who's taking the photographs and should they be allowed. And finally, there was an offer from one member of the public to swap the hostages in the Lindt Café with these people. I think social media is always prone to overreacting. You're always going to see that in social media, and as the mood swings, as you rightly call them. I think what we've got here is, again, it's a very well-intentioned hashtag.
Yeah.
It's a very positive social message. It's 500,000 people of Muslim faith living in Australia.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely right and proper that in a multicultural society they're reached out to, and you know, members of the public reach out to them. But of course, you know, there's always going to be people who are going to take advantage of that. But I think it'll be an interesting hashtag to see how that works out over the next 24 hours or so. It's a lot of celebrity backing.
Absolutely, I imagine it has.
So you'll be able to catch up with that in our live updates on RT.com.